Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. Join me as we have a real-life discussion on how to change your life by changing your thoughts. Remember, question everything, trust yourself, and find your truth. Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. This is a show where we talk about bringing our thoughts to life and also about solutions to living free in an unfree world. And I really think those two things go hand in hand. And I was thinking about this before I recorded the show today. And part of why I think we don't create what we speak or feel like we're living freely is because we spend so much time imprisoned in our own minds with our negative thoughts. And when we set up these scenarios for ourselves and when we're feeling, imprisoned in our own minds, it's hard to have that energy or that space to freely create. And one of those areas I think this is especially prevalent is with our careers. Since we spend so much time at work, having a job you're unsatisfied with can feel like a prison. And I know that because I've been there and done that. And it's a terrible place to be. So as someone who's been fired and laid off multiple times, I know firsthand the impacts this has on your life. So this week, I'm really excited to bring executive career and leadership coach Amy Sanchez to the show. And I chose the title of the show, Don't Flee to Another Job You'll Hate. Instead, learn the secrets to finding a career you'll love. I know that's a mouthful, but I chose that because I've done that. I've done that multiple times over the years and it's never turned out good. I just went from one job to the next, recreating these same situations. And all I got was a new job title and a new company. So Amy's going to help us get really clear about finding personal and professional satisfaction. And surprisingly, quitting your job might not be the answer. So Amy will tell us more about that. And just before we get started here, I'll give you a little bit of information about Amy. She's an executive career and leadership coach and the founder of Swim Against the Current. She helps corporate leaders clarify and pursue their ideal career path and leadership style so they can maximize their happiness, impact, and earning potential. Her innovative coaching approach has guided hundreds of leaders from Fortune 50 companies to Silicon Valley entrepreneurs to find their unique value proposition while navigating change, amplifying leadership, impact, and accelerating team productivity. Amy holds an MBA from USC and a professional certified coach license from the International Coaching Federation, one of the highest coaching distinctions. Amy is also a keynote speaker and industry thought leader with published works in leading business publications like Fast Company, Business News Daily, Authority Magazine, Thrive Global, and the Corporate Magazine. Amy, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sloan. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I know I read your bio, but I always like to ask the guests, who's Amy Sanchez in your own words?
Great question. In addition to what I do professionally with my clients, I am also a mom of two young girls. I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old daughter, a wife of a wonderful husband, and they fulfill me in ways that I would be lost without them. But I also know in doing a lot of soul searching and to your point, living life to the fullest, my professional part of me is a very, it's essential to who I am, and it allows me to thrive. So overall, from the professional side, the way that I look at it is I am very much on this earth. My mission is to help support high-performing individuals who have a real fire in their belly to make a positive impact and remove roadblocks to help them get there.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think, like I said, at the beginning, my experience over the years in working in corporate America and having dissatisfaction in my career, many times throughout my life, having someone to work with or someone who understands that, right? Because I know for me, like I've over the years tried to talk with friends about it and maybe they weren't working in corporate environments, so they didn't get it, so those weren't people that I could actually, use as a sounding board. So having career and leadership coaching is so invaluable. And like you're saying, that drives you, right? That's why you love doing that and being able to help people and bring that value. And it's totally needed.
Yes, thank you. And I can relate to your story too, Sloan, because prior to becoming a coach, I was in corporate America for 13 years, jumping from job to job to job, looking for the thing to make me happy.
Right. Yep. Been there, done that. I get it. So is that what the catalyst was that actually led you into coaching, or was this always something that you had in the back of your mind, or what got you to where you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. I had no idea what a coach was. If you would have asked me 10 years ago what a coach is, I would have said, oh, somebody who teaches you how to play basketball.
Right.
I had just never heard the term. I very much stumbled upon coaching. So, 13 years in corporate America, I worked for small healthcare companies, big healthcare companies, Eli Lilly, Johnson & Johnson, startups. My pattern was every 2 to 3 years, I would switch jobs because I'd have this 6 months of a honeymoon period, and then I go back to being unhappy.
Yeah, I get it. I'm laughing because I did, that was my pattern as well. I totally get it. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, you've been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, then it's like, okay, well, maybe if I just have a different boss, or maybe if I just work for a different company, or if I focus on a different product, a different mission, what if I just replace one different variable? And what I found after doing that 5 or 6 times was that just wasn't the answer for me. But I wasn't ready to face that reality until literally I got kicked out the door.
Yeah.
So in my last corporate role, I announced that I was pregnant. I was pregnant with my first child. Mm-hmm. I'd been working in a remote capacity for a very high, fast-paced marketing organization, had my most challenging job to date. As soon as I announced I was pregnant, Sloan, there had been no question about my working remotely until I made that announcement. And then I was asked to move to the home office and pay out of pocket or quit.
I mean, okay, I'm like raging inside for you, but so I mean, what was their justification? Like, why? Like, what did they try to, why, but what did they try to say?
There were conversations had around how it made sense for business results and to continue to motivate and drive my team and, giving me more oversight. And some of that made a lot of sense. The thing that didn't make sense to me was the timing, because nothing had significantly changed except my pregnancy. Right. Certainly they had their reasons. It was, although I will say it has a really happy ending, because that is the thing that forced me to really look at, okay, is this what I want to do?
Right. 100%. Yes.
Putting so much of my time and energy into companies, in marketing, and that same loyalty isn't returned.
Right.
And I needed that. I needed that kick. And when I see clients coming to me, I'm seeing them in that crux, and I know what's on the other side of that. That forced me then to, it turns out we were able to, negotiate a severance package. I was able to max out my maternity leave and just focus on my daughter. And during that time, it was the first time I'd taken an extended leave in years. So that was one piece of it, is just opening up my thought process to things besides emails and deliverables. Yep. And then the other piece of it was the first time in my life where I was able to really exercise this muscle where I nurtured another human being so closely. Mm-hmm. And that opened a side of me that I didn't even know was so reviving for me. So I had 2 really important insights during that time. And in addition, as soon as my daughter was born, my grandfather died 3 weeks later. So it was like all these things around me just came crashing down.
Yeah. The chaos
very
ensued.
much came exactly. And it felt scary at times. It was sad at times. It was really stressful at times. But it also made me ask some really deep questions like life purpose. Is it possible for me to find a job that I really love? I'd seen others who had done it. What would that look like for me?
Right.
So in the midst of stress, that's, as the ashes sort of fell around me, that's when I started to have clarity as to what really mattered. I worked with a coach, and through that process discovered, hey, coaching was a really good fit for me to move forward. And swim against the current started 4.5 years ago.
Yeah. So I have so many things, because your story is very similar to mine, and even the insights that you're talking about. So what you were talking about after you had your daughter, the message for women for years has been, you can't have both, right? You can't have the career and be at this level and have the family, right? But I think one of the many things 2020 brought us, I think, was that questioning of that, right? Like the things that you're talking about right here, I think, and I went through those over the years, but I think the majority of people were faced with those kinds of questions or those kinds of situations where they were forced to go in. And it's very uncomfortable to do that. Like you're saying, when we hear other people's story or we think about how it might be for us, we never want to think about the painful parts. Or when other people tell us the story, they don't always tell us about the painful parts that they went through to get on the other side, like you were talking about. So when we have these situations like this, and like you were saying, they were like giving you this ultimatum, and then it's kind of like, well, why am I doing this, right? Like, why am I putting all of this out for a company or whatever organization, whatever it is, that isn't giving me something similar in return, right? And so then there's a lot of questioning around that. And again, I think a lot of this goes back to the way we're brought up. These stories we're told, or these how you're expected to fit into the machine, so to speak, right? Be a good obeyer and obey, and you say yes when they tell you to go in the office, and that kind of stuff. And so, and that doesn't work. That doesn't work for someone who's seeking more or isn't okay with that, or isn't going to accept that as their fate, right? As it's been the same for me, and obviously the same for you. And so I wonder sometimes if more people maybe aren't aware that things like what we're talking about are an option. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like that's another reason why I was really interested to talk to you, because I sometimes feel like maybe in people I've talked to don't think that's an option for them. And I don't agree. I think it's an option for everybody. And not everybody's situation looks the same or will be the same, but the option to move away from this environment that would replace you in 5 seconds if you were gone, right, is available. But it's working with people like you who can coach somebody through that to understand what that is for them, that can be uncomfortable, but also can be freeing on the other side.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really well said. And there's so many layers to it. And the thing that I love about coaching versus reading books or kind of joining groups is it's so tailored to the individual. Right. And as you start to peel away the onion, there's so many layers to this. For some people, they stay in it because there's such a heaviness around money. For other people, it's the obedience. For other people, it's the validation. Whatever the driving factor is that's keeping you there, that's the important piece to examine and say, but does this have to be true for me? And what are the possibilities if it's not? Right.
Yes. Freeing your mind, right? Like I talked about at the beginning, like getting out of that story loop, because for years I had that story that it had to be this way, or I had to be, this was the track I had to be on. And I can remember before I moved to Nashville, which has been almost 5 years now, I took a leave of absence. I was in corporate consulting for a long time and traveled, and that life is very easy to burn out on, and I was at that point. I was tired of the billing. I was tired of expected to bill, but then do all this training outside of it, on my own time. And so I took a leave of absence, and that was something that for me was way out of my comfort zone, right? Way out of my box of thinking was even possible. And I got a 2-month leave of absence from my job. And I actually ended up coming to Nashville. And while I was in Nashville, I got the call about the job that I got that actually paid me to move here. So it was this chain of events that happened that was, had I not been brave enough to ask for that and explore what I was feeling was calling to me, I don't know if I would be sitting in my home in Nashville right now having this conversation with you.
Oh, I love that story, Sloan. It's so true. There's a real fear of risk and change. And as humans, innately, we're just not good with change.
Yeah.
But leaning into that fear, even if it's just a small step, that's when the doors of opportunity start to open.
Yeah. Yeah. When I moved here, I talked about the red carpet getting rolled out for me, because once I had made that decision, I was going to make that change. And in my mind, I said, everybody get in formation, because this is how this is going to go. And that's what happened. But it takes that first step. It takes that willingness to be brave and be willing to get out of the box. And like